My name is Sarah Evans Wallman. I'm the Associate Director of Field Development and Training with Academic Year in America, otherwise known as AYA. And today we are going live to give you a peek into what life is like as an AYA local coordinator. There's so much information out there about AYA, but it's best when people can talk to those who are such an integral part of the program and can learn from them, and that's what this is all about. So we have Melissa with us. She's in Washington. So Melissa, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. I am Melissa Jackson. I've been with AYA for about 5 years, and most of my AYA journey was in Charlotte, North Carolina. Loved hosting and placing students and being a part of it there. And our family recently moved to Seattle, and so I have great hopes of kind of building a community and bringing the whole exchange student program to where I live now.
Awesome, awesome. So when did you start as a coordinator?
It was about 5 years ago, and it's funny because I literally had no experience with exchange students, no experience traveling abroad or overseas, really very little experience with cultural experience at all. And so I needed some kind of work that I could do from home with children, and thought, okay, well, this kind of fits the bucket and we'll see. Never did I expect it to become a passion of mine or something that kind of influenced not just me or work, but became my entire family experience, kind of infiltrated to my friends and my community. So it became much more than a job as it is.
Yeah, for sure. Now, did you start, I can't remember, but did you start hosting or being an LC and then LC turned into hosting?
I was just an LC. I was just a coordinator.
Okay.
Had about 15 students my first 2 years, and in my mind, we were not going to host. We had 3 kids at this, and they were young, and I thought, maybe when our kids are teenagers. And actually, it was my husband that pushed the whole thing forward, and I think it came from just having students hang out at our house. They were just in with us a lot, and they're fun.
Yeah.
Like, they're just fun. And so he kind of challenged us to host, and then it was such a great experience that we did it again.
Awesome. So if you can describe, like, to the world what being a coordinator is like in a nutshell, how would you describe that?
AYA's mission is bringing the world together, and I think that really embodies what a coordinator does. You're kind of the orchestrator between a host family and a student. You find a family, and then you get to know them and what their interest and their family dynamic is, and then you kind of search with them for a student that you think would just be a good complement to their home. And then the best part is when they arrive and you kind of get that magic moment at the airport when they talk on the phone, they've video chatted, they're so excited, there's so much anticipation, and they finally get to start this adventure together. And so, yeah, you really are just the middleman to make things go as smoothly as possible, and then kind of get out of the way and allow them to have their experience while being a buffer of anything that you need.
For sure. And what do you think it takes to be like an ideal, really good local coordinator?
Let's see. I would say flexibility for sure. That
yeah.
5. It is kind of on call because you're working with people's lives, and so nobody can predict a broken arm. Nobody can predict somebody getting sick, or a job loss, or a job transfer, or just things that come up because you're dealing with people's lives. And so you're kind of available, and you may have stretches where everything is, nobody needs you, and you may have stretches where people just have questions or need guidance or have next steps. So flexibility. And then the other part I would say is communication skills. I in most of life, 75% of what we have challenges with could be avoided with communication.
Yes.
And so being able to communicate with students and with host families, everybody's expectations, the way things, having them prepared for the way things are going to work. I just think being able to clearly communicate is key.
Yeah, for sure. And I know obviously you hosted and are an LC. So how do you think hosting has helped you become, the LC you are?
It definitely benefits if you do it first. I mean, the way I did it, but
Yeah.
like the person who's not a parent saying like, let me give you parenting advice. And you're like,
Yes.
like,
Yeah. Please don't.
the same thing where I feel like I can speak into things and say like, I get it because I get it. Whether it's a student or a host family, both sides, I feel like I've experienced, even the student side, seeing students in my home struggle with missing their family. I get it differently than just seeing a student struggle missing their family. And so, yeah, having experienced it, and it helps when there's a new host family to say like, I get your fears or I get your hesitancy because I was also hesitant and here was my experience. So yeah, I think it's a game changer once you've kind of walked that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when it comes to hosting, what would you say, and this is like a very loaded question, but what would you say are the most important qualities a host family should have?
I would say number one would be kindness. I think, I don't think being a host family is hard. I think sometimes host families make it harder. Like they have this grandiose idea, but truly when a student comes, they want somebody who genuinely wants to know them and be relational with them. And so I think somebody who is genuinely kind and cares about relationship building is like top quality. Everything else kind of falls into place. It's definitely not a lot of money. It's definitely not super organized. It's definitely not a beautiful home. Like it's all these things that we think need to happen.
Yeah.
But I just think the whole thing comes from having the heart to want to experience this with a student.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've seen it and you've seen it as, our families are awesome. And there are so many people who have that kind of key, which is, being kind and being good people. But even though they're kind and they're great, everyone's looking for those answers to, well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And there's that kind of anxiety and anticipation and nervousness. What would you say is kind of the recipe for a successful hosting year for a family? Like, what are the big like do's for a family?
Sure. I think knowing your family well, as far as being able to kind of think through your expectations of, a lot of people have these like back of their mind expectations that they don't even realize. And if you on paper and then bring them to your coordinator who you have a great relationship with and say, are these even realistic? Because it's funny, a student will come and then the family will say, well, I thought they would make dinner once a week, or I thought they would their foreign language. And you're like, who knew that? Like, one is, and two, the students, a 16-year-old doesn't think like that. And so I think the best thing you can do is really prepare yourself for what you expect and then try to figure out if that's realistic. Because a lot of times the expectations in our minds, when we place them on a 16-year-old, probably aren't very realistic anyway. They're just teenagers and kids and want to just experience being a part of your family.
Right. And you even said it, you have to communicate about these things, because if not, someone's going to assume something that the other person might not. And then, if communication doesn't happen, a lot of things can't happen.
I think so many challenges that I've walked through with host families either disappear once we've communicated it all together, or could have been completely avoided. Little things, I just wanted them to hang up their towel in the bathroom, and you're like, I really think they can do that. You just have to tell them. It's the littlest things, but just being able to communicate well is a part of success.
Sure. Now, when it comes to having the student arrive, and it's such a cool moment and an exciting moment. And, again, there's that nervousness and excitement from the family of like, well, how do I prepare for the student? Like what should a family do to prepare kind of themselves, other than, kind of like rid yourself of expectations and be clear about those things. But what should a family do to prepare for the student's arrival to their home?
There's little things that your coordinator could tell you, like, there's families that do sweet things to make their room more comfy or make them feel fun. But as a broad answer, I think there's very little that you do. I really think that your life should look very similar before and after the student's arrival. For so many reasons. One, people with big grandiose plans and ideas, it's not maintainable long term. Or if you've completely upended your whole routine and schedule so that you can serve them a hot breakfast in bed, like, hey,
yeah.
I think, to say the way we live now, we're going to invite them into that. We're not lifestyle to be something else so that they experience something different. So yeah, I think the expectation is way lower than people realize.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you mentioned normal life is key for the student to experience. Like from your families, I know it's kind of different everywhere, but what would you say like a typical week, like a hosting week looks like?
Yeah. My personal family, it looked exactly the same. You may have a couple more errands to run or to drop a student off or coordinate another schedule. But my students knew, my own two girls that we hosted, they, I set them down early on and I said, we have 4 kids. They have crazy schedules. When you can get a ride, that's super beneficial. When you can't, we'll figure it out. This is how, how we roll. And, it looked very similar. So they knew where we were going and what we were doing, and that they were invited but not expected. So we're going to soccer practice on Monday and Wednesday. You can come, you can stay home. It's kind of our personal, like what I did with my family looked almost identical, both during arrival.
Yeah, awesome. And again, kind of going back to the what ifs, and we get this question a lot. I'm sure you get this question a lot. Is this is great? This is so exciting, but like, what if it doesn't work out? What do we do? So like, what do you tell people when they ask that? Because we know they ask that, and it's a very normal question.
It is very normal, and I think what I tell people, or what I feel, is that I'm not only selling AYA or selling the idea of an exchange student when I'm promoting it. I'm selling myself as the relationship that I have with them. I need them to trust me. They have to know that I'm invested in their family and their success in this, and that I'm not going to disappear when something happens. And so I want them to call me when they're frustrated. I want them to call me if they feel uneasy about the way things are going, and I want to step into that with them. So I think having a good relationship with your local coordinator, knowing that they're going to respond to you and be an advocate for both you and your student, and be that kind of middle ground to see both sides, I think is really important for them. Most people know, if they know they're not stuck, it's just it's usually they don't need it. Most of the time, families go, they just want to know you're there if it didn't work.
Yes.
And so I think having that affirmation just kind of lays a foundation of like, if you get anxious, I am here for you. And that's all they need.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, obviously, COVID is here, and it's a part of our lives, and it's now kind of become a part of our program, and we've had to work around it. But what would you say to a family who is understandably concerned about I really want to host, but COVID exists, and what is AYA kind of doing about it, and how can I do this with COVID still being here?
Sure. I think as we're hopefully
Mhm.
on this downward slope of COVID, we're seeing hopefully light, that people are ready to live life again. And I can speak, I think, for the majority of local coordinators that I've spoken with, we're ready to have students again. We're ready for to
Yeah,
be able, and so it makes me sad when people are uneasy about it for that as being a reason, understandably. But
sure. Sure.
AYA has really stepped into like to having a plan that students have to have a negative test 72 hours before coming, and when they come, they quarantine with the
Yeah.
family. So they'll ensuring that they're healthy and not a
Yeah.
carrier upon arrival. But I think that once they're here, they're going to follow the same protocols that the family has in place, that the school has in place. And so, yeah, I really hope that people kind of embrace this like as being a part of the next season so that we can kind of have some normal life experience again.
For sure, for sure. I agree. And I experienced the same thing personally and with program participants and potential host families is people kind of they want all of this again. And on the other side, it is understandable. COVID is still kind of unknown and it could be scary, but hosting's not scary. So
Yeah.
no. Awesome. So, those are I think we're good, but thank you so much for going live with me. For those of you who are watching, thank you for tuning in. If anyone does ever have any questions about hosting, you can reach out to AYA at ayainfo@aifs.org, or you can reach out to us toll free 1-800-322-HOST. And if you happen to be in the Seattle area, then Melissa will probably be your local coordinator. But it's an absolutely wonderful program. If you have hosted, you know this. If you haven't hosted, go on the website, get some information, and hopefully you will host with us. And Melissa, thank you so much for going live with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.